Hey there friends, today I'm going to be showing you how I created this card using the new basket weave card front die from Concord and Ninth, along with one of my favorite color combinations. I'm pairing the new basket weave card front die, and it's an A2 size die, with the everyday sayings dies. And I love these because they're very versatile and they have, everyday sayings. I'm using a really fun color scheme of nectar, sunflower, tide pool, and peacock to create my sentiment. But first, I want to use an A2 piece of white cardstock that's 100 pound that I'm using here to cut my background with a beautiful basket weave. And I'm just using some mint tape from scrapbook.com to attach that card panel to the die, and then I'm going to run that through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 machine with my magic mat from scrapbook.com in place. All this does is cut the lines in your card front panel. It doesn't cut anything out, so you won't see any pieces coming out. It just creates that lovely texture of that basket weave design. Now we're going to get creative with this card front panel because you don't have to leave them plain and just adhere things on top. I'm going to cut the shadow layer from the Everyday Sayings Hello die cut word out from the center of that card panel and just cut that word out of that A2 size piece of white cardstock that already has the beautiful basket weave pattern in it, and you can always keep this shadow to use elsewhere. So I'm going to set that aside because the next thing we're going to do is create our colorful sentiment. But to do that, I'm going to have to cut some strips. The first thing I'm going to grab is a piece of plain copy paper. Just regular, copy paper that you put in your printer because that is going to be what we adhere all of our strips onto. I'm going to cut 1/2 inch strips in nectar, sunflower, tide pool, and peacock. And 1/2 inch strips should do it. I just need one strip of each for the entire word. Make sure you always measure the word to make sure your cardstock pieces are large enough and you only need one layer for whichever word you're doing, because you might have to start again with that color sequence if you have a taller word. But I really love this color scheme, and I actually tried it on a completely different kind of card before, and it didn't really work because there was too much white space and the colors weren't close enough together. But on this card, these colors really pop together. Just having these paper strips next to each other really works. So I'm adhering these using scrapbook.com's tape runner to that piece of copy paper, and I'm making sure that I get that dot adhesive, that's a dot adhesive, all the way across my piece of cardstock so that in case there is a tiny little piece on a letter that is cut using the die, that piece will remain in place. So next I'm going to get my hello word exactly where I want it on my strips, and then I'm going to run that through my Platinum 6 machine using my magic mat from scrapbook.com. And this is like magic to me. I love creating sentiments using strips, and often I will try to do that with some really fun color combination that I've come up with. But look how lovely that looks. It just looks so great together and so striking, especially when you put that on white. Now there's a little piece of that L on the pink, the nectar piece that I wanted to get adhered down. This card really isn't going to have too much dimension to it. I'm not using foam adhesive, but what I do want to do is stack these sentiments. So I cut 2 more sentiments using just 100-pound white cardstock. I'm adding my adhesive using my Gina K Designs glue bottle there, and I'm just adding a thin strip of adhesive so that I can adhere the 2 white layers together. And it's always a good idea to use scrap that you have laying around for these. I always keep pieces that I have, just bits and bobs of that I can cut my sentiments out of to, to use those little scraps up. And then I will adhere my colorful sentiment to the top of this. I find that this really elevates the design without that extra bulk of foam adhesive, and it really makes it solid, like a really solid sentiment. There we go, just using my fingers there to get those all aligned perfectly. I thought that it would be nice to trim this down just a tad, about 1/8 of an inch on all four sides, so that I had a nice clean white border on all four sides. And I did realize that it's so much easier to cut your panel down before you die cut the card front. So I would highly recommend just deciding what size you want your card front to be before you use that basket weave card front die. Okay, so I'm placing my die cut card front panel onto a piece of plain A2 white cardstock, and then I'm just going to go in here and add some adhesive all around that die cut word, making sure that I get in those tiny little places like where the O goes down around the H, to make sure that I have really good coverage all around there so I don't get any gaps. Now I have that centered, I want to make sure that I get my sentiment centered inside of that shadow area as well. So again, I'm using my scrapbook.com adhesive inside a Gina K Designs glue bottle, adding some liquid adhesive to that really nice and sturdy die cut word, and then I will place it right in the middle of the shadow area. So remember, shadows can be used to cut a second die cut that you then lay your sentiment on top of, or you can do a reverse cut, so you can cut out the negative space to which you then add your die cut word into. There are just a couple of little tiny pieces of that basket weave that are right on the edge when I trimmed, so I want to get those glued down so they're nice and clean on that card front. And I'm just going to leave that acrylic block on there for a second to help that hold down. So the last thing I want to do is add just a few little enamel dots, and I love that Concord and Ninth enamel dots match their colors so perfectly. So I'm using Nectar, some Tide Pool here, and the Peacock. Absolutely love these colors together, and this just adds a little special touch, like a little sprinkling of a different kind of texture, that shininess, to the texture on that card front panel. This was one of the most simple cards I created in my guest spot for Concord and Ninth this month, but it just goes to show you that you don't need to get complicated to make a beautiful card. Just come up with one of your favorite color combinations, use some die cuts, add some texture, and have fun. It's clean, it's colorful, and it's just my style, and I hope you love it as much as I do. Shop all of the supplies that I used in this video by clicking the video details below, and be sure to subscribe for more card making videos.